All right, welcome to Dark Sorcery. I am the Sorcerer on my soul, and today I bring to you another one of our powerful, just capable admins, Miss Ikela Morningstar. How you doing, sister?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Shit, I'm kicking it. So here in Dark Sorcery, we do like a lot of things. Like, I mean, there's so many things behind the scenes that we're doing. We're not just keeping up with like the Facebook group, but we're also keeping up with the demands and needs and stuff that come through to various admins. Uh, and we each try to do our share of either doing videos for our Facebook group for our community, uh, or services or so forth and so on. You've been doing a lot of videos here lately. How's that going for you?
it's different. I think I'm still trying to get used to it. I have a lot that I want to share. It's just it kind of comes out in bits and pieces, and I kind of wait for my guides to kind of guide me as to something that needs to be said. So, I've talked to Alfredo a lot about that, and I think I'm, getting more open about sharing some of that stuff so that I can open up and share about the stuff that I do.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I also noticed that it's very important that, the more we do this, the more natural it becomes, and just, being able to do like videos and stuff, because that's the way it was for me anyway. So,
yeah,
so I heard that you wanted to talk about a certain subject.
I did.
Yeah. What do you want to
Right.
talk about?
Say it again. Sorry, it cut
What do
out.
you want to talk about? I mean, concerning the shadow, what are your
I
thoughts?
mean, all aspects of it, because I think it plays an important role in not only our lives but also in our magic. And the more that growing up, we're conditioned to feel ashamed when we do a certain thing, and that programs us to feel like certain acts are not okay. And really, what the way society is, I don't agree with all of that. After you grow up and stuff like that, but we still have that in the back of our mind. So like that part of us that wants to do certain things and then feel shame over it, or it's just that instinct of wanting to harm people, or you could call it like the darker side, the evil side. We all have thoughts of wanting to do things that we probably wouldn't do, but we have those thoughts.
Yeah.
I've thought about murdering people before. So I mean, no joke. I mean, and the reason why I wanted to talk about it was because I wanted to talk about different ideas on working on the shadow work. Kind of talk about like maybe what things you do to do that. Do you work on shadow work? Share my ideas on things that I do to work on the shadow. Because the more you try to run from the shadow, it's going to get you. It's going to win. Bottom line, if you're trying to, you know, let's just say, for example, let's say you wanted to quit drinking or whatever, and the more that you ignore that side of you, the more chances are that you're going to run to that, because you just can't beat the shadow, and that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, you and I, we've talked a lot about that separately within messaging back and forth.
Hmm.
Concerning how sometimes it's an overpowering urge to just straight up either physically assault somebody, in certain situations, or just straight up, bank magic. I'm blasting this motherfucker off. Everything
Yes.
everything from that to an over sexual drive,
Right.
things of that
Yes.
nature. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think it's important. Like, we'll have a lot of viewers, and some people, they're a little bit more knowledgeable than others, and they'll sit there and they'll nitpick this, and they'll be like, "Well,
Hmm.
you're talking about the id, or you're talking about the ego, or you're talking about this, or you're talking about that. So let's go ahead and put this at rest. Let's imagine that all things in the universe have a higher nature and a lower nature, including the shadow, because even the HGA aspect of self has both a higher and a lower vibrational state of being. So for sake of the argument and for our audience here, I'm going to go ahead and break this out for you. So what Akila and I are going to be discussing is the shadow self, and in this aspect, we're talking about the lower vibrational aspect of it, not the higher aspect, which is the part that we're supposed to blend in with our HGA, with that which is the holy daemon, which is all a construct, but a well needed construct for the whole of our consciousness, for what we call the God self that we each and every single one of us are. With that being said and done, though, let's get back to it. So talking about the shadow self, I used to call mine I used to keep mine in a cage. Like I could literally feel it like a cage. And I was always dying it. And I could always feel this thing banging at the fucking walls at the bars of it. And I used to tell everybody, I keep mine caged and chained, and I keep it caged and chained for a reason. Because there are times when you can control it. And there are times when you cannot. And you as the individual will know when it's a very bad idea to let that aspect out, whether it's considered self-control or, or denial of it. I think that there are plenty of times throughout our lives where we should exercise it, because see, that was a failure of my own for fucking years, is the fact that I denied it, because I kind of looked at it like the Native Americans with the twin wolves concept, which one you feed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as my own belief system started to evolve, I went to realizing that it's not about two halves. It's about one thing that has two aspects.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to realizing that, I was like, well, I've got to exercise mine, meaning I've got to let him come to the surface. I've got to let him play, do his thing. Well, the very first thing you want to do is like you'll find somebody who'll make some kind of dumbass statement. And your first thought is, I'm going off on this person. Whether it's in real life or it's digital or whatever. Me personally, I like to run across motherfuckers in real life, not those keyboard ninja captain warrior types. Fuck that, man. I don't know what the fuck that is. You run across one of them in real life, let's see. Some of them might be able to back it up, but most of them can't or won't. It's anonymity makes us all brave. Even doing this, it can be considered doing the exact same thing. But that's not the point. So let's get to it just a bit. I know for a matter of fact that, we being flesh and being bound by rules, social rules and etiquettes and things, you know, that chain us, that keep us from, being who and what we were born to be, which is just, the apex predator type, just a little bit better than the animals, and that was it. Well, reasoning and consciousness changed that, and then as a result of it, society became built. Well, when society came built, they're like, yeah, everybody come into the city. Let's all take care of one another. Let's do this. Let's do that. And something that is denied is the natural hunting aspect of self. I don't mean like, the men were the hunters and the women sat there cooking fire. Hell no, man. They all hunted. They all did their thing. Do you think that that's where these outbursts are coming from? Especially the violent war type?
Yeah, I definitely absolutely agree. I do think that's where it comes from, because we have changed and evolved over time. And, I mean, if let's say we had no survival skills and we got out, in the middle of nowhere, I mean, we're going to be in for it, because we're so used to using like Google and everything else that we don't even have those natural survival skills like we once did. And that's scary, because it's just starting to just disappear, And I agree with you about the two halves, that is really a whole. And I kind of incorporate that in my magic. So I consider myself gray. Of course, I like the darker side more, obviously, left-hand path and all that. But, I definitely like to throw in a little bit of healing for people here and there, and stuff like that. For me, how I feed my shadow is, I'm a single mom and I'm working and I'm doing all this stuff. Well, when my kids go to their dads, every other weekend, Ikela might go a little crazy and drink a little excessive, might get a little sexual, and might, you know what I mean? And it's like, it doesn't happen very often. It's like, whatever, I'm just having fun. I don't go like overboard and like go drinking and driving or doing anything stupid. I'm home, I'm safe, I'm going to a bar and a taxi, things like that. And that's, for me, how I unwind, because mine is definitely very, very powerful. And I got it locked up in a cage as well. And it's like, you can't go overboard with it, but you can't deny it. And that's what we do. We deny that self and us, and we end up, having the going postal outbursts, hurting people, shooting people up, because we hold on to it, try to deny it, and then it comes out in the weirdest way. We end up harming people that we care about. And so that can be very dangerous.
Well, the one thing that I've learned is that you take into account all the things that a person has been through in their life. The shadow is developed. Okay, the the shadow was like a blank sheet of paper. Okay, it was like clay with no life. If you're going by the golem of Hebrew mythology, or you're going by an egregore. Okay, so the shadow was just clay. That's all it was. And when we were born, everything from the way we were treated, good or bad, towards all the choices we made, cause and effect, you know, and all these negative things gave this being power, gave it life. Every single bit of it, it breathed life into it. But here's the one thing most people do not understand: your shadow is not something to be feared. Your shadow is your protector. I find this in a lot of places where people they know the word, but they don't understand what it is. And then when they're like, "Oh, well, that must be what this is inside of me," and it's like, no, it's because you have absolutely no self control. It has nothing to do with your shadow, Johnny.
Mhm.
It's because you need to slow down some. Oh, I love people like that. Like there's an excuse ready on the lips of everybody who speaks and says something.
Yeah.
Hey, why did you kill 13 people? Oh, I don't know. Me either, but I'm gonna stay with you. You happen to be somebody that could set you off, and that's what out of 14, lucky number. It's like, no, I don't think so. Uh, but getting back on track with that, breaking out the humor of it. So it instilled within us this defender, this natural defender. I like to think of the shadow in the sense of what we're talking about. I like to think of that aspect as being the one who sits there and says, "I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, I'm capable." The one that says, "I am beautiful, I am strong, I am intelligent, I am this, I am that." Because notice it's the exact same aspect that when it's faced with something that it doesn't fucking understand, it has one of two choices: fuck it or kill it. But if you
Yeah.
ever notice that with the shadow self, it has two reactions towards something it cannot decide how to handle or what to do with it. It's the only two
Mhm.
I've ever seen. And and that's what gave me the idea, because it is that primal. That's what gave me the idea that it is born, not something that was already there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. That's what I was kind of talking about, like when we're born, and then we slowly get conditioned from the negative responses that we get from society. So we're not actually born like that. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. Some of the let's break out for any children who might be watching this, parents, you might want to like tune them out. So let's go NC-17 just a little bit, maybe not quite
Okay.
NC-17, but R-rated perhaps. But we'll
Okay.
get there. Okay, so let's talk about the shadow self and the sexual self, or the sexual drive, that which makes us, the outgoing, hunters of the ass type.
Right.
Uh, there are. This is a very mature conversation to have, and it's one that, and we can joke about, and we can laugh about, but it's also
Oh, and
something
I'm sure we will.
that is never talked about. Nobody says this shit. Nobody ever puts this out there. And dark sorcery, where we're coming from, is just saying, hey, this is the truth. Just take it. You know,
Mhm.
take what from it actually works for you, what fits for you, what you can understand, take
Right.
it and run with it. So
Yeah.
so with that in mind, let's go into this just a little bit. Um, you can. What are your thoughts on that? Actually, just starting off, what are your thoughts as far as the shadow and the sexual self, or the self that identifies through sex?
Right. I think for me, that is it's a side of me that I do like, but that I keep locked up somewhat. But like when I let my shadow go, I've got like lingerie. I want to take pictures. I want to do wild stuff, and that's the side of me that's not always out, because you gotta, you know what I mean? Like we can't. Well, I guess you could be, but we try to deny that and stuff. But I'm a very sexual person, and I do little things to feed that. Like whether I take pictures and send them to somebody because it's a thrill to me, like to see them, getting excited, or whether, I mean, it could be a lot of different things, or shooting a video of, having sex or something,
Oh yeah,
just different things.
yeah. You know, the interesting thing about that is that the way that it is acted out is always inherent to a part that is missing. To be like, for example, for those who like to shoot videos of that stuff, what's the part missing from them? What's the part that their shadow is saying is necessary? Look at me, here I am. You know, I am something to be, desired, to be wanted, so forth and so on, or to be viewed, to be seen.
Hmm.
This is the shadow saying, I exist, I am. If you remember Frankenstein's monster, what was his one thing? He wanted to be recognized that he was a creation, that he was his child. Our
Right.
shadow is literally no freaking different. No matter which aspect we're coming from. Uh, in this day and age, we call them kinks, or we call them yeah, I don't know.
Fetishes.
Yeah, fetishes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's so many different things. Um, some are voyeurs, some are what is the word? Damn it, the ones who shoot pictures and shit. Uh, wow, it's so in my head. But anyway, you have all these different aspects of this. Okay.
Right.
Now then, let's go. Let's take this a bit deeper and come out of the idea of fetishes and all this other stuff, because that is the shadow acting out, doing what it can. Now let's talk about the shadow in action in a moment. Like for example, let's say you go to a bar, or let's say you can even go to a bookstore. You don't really even have to go that, and all of a sudden you see somebody and you're really attracted by them, and that part of yourself comes up. It's like, I can think of a million and one things I could do to that person. What you got to think of is what a million and one things that person would do to you, and so it's exciting on both ends. And so what you do is you
Yeah.
bring that aspect up, and you've got to bring it into yourself, because it's like trying to hook up with people. It's not all about saying the right thing or anything like that. It's just coming across. It's like the beast inside me sees the beast inside you. Are they compatible? It's like in the animal kingdom where the scent is everything. And it's kind of the same way.
Hmm.
The shadow not only brings that aspect of that sexual beast from within, but it also can bring it out of the other person if acted out correctly.
Hmm.
Do you have any knowledge or experience with that, with using that? I mean, or is yours just out of control, just straight up just pounce?
Like, okay, so like bringing it out in somebody else, or I
No,
guess I'm not
how you bring it,
understanding. Like,
how it comes out of you, how you present it to somebody else, and how somebody else reacts to it.
okay, so the shadow self, as far as sex or that attraction. Hmm. I don't know. I guess I never really kind of looked at that. I don't know if you've noticed from when we talk a lot, like group chats and stuff, you notice that I'll be quiet a lot of the times. So I'm really the observer, especially even if I see someone I like, I might have a million fantasies going through my head, but I'll be very quiet and observe for quite a bit of time. And I'm like that with everything, and that's just something that I do. I don't know.
Well,
So
I know a lot of people like that actually. It's where fantasy comes from. You know, uh, because like in this world, there's a lot of times where people think they can't have something, so they do one of two things: either they fantasize about it, or they go do something about it. Now, that doing something about it can be legal or illegal, just depending on whatever. And I'm not getting into that because that is a can of worms I'm not even touching. But
yeah.
I find it interesting. Like, there have been a lot of people that I've met throughout my life that I got interested in, and I don't know if it was due to working with the vampiric current and working spiritual predatorialism that brought it forth. There are so many different avenues out there to learn how to craft and mold that shadow self within inside. For me,
Mm.
for me, it was vampirism. For me, it was spiritual predatorialism. For some people, it's lycanthropy style stuff. Uh, stuff like that. Uh, because there are so many archetypes that rule over that aspect. And speaking of
Mm-hmm.
archetypes, and I really wanted to go into this just a little bit, is
Okay.
is so you have the Lilith aspect. Lilith is the primal feminine aspect of the sex drive, the sex urge. Same as Samael or Armin is the masculine sex drive. Uh, and this isn't to get into a Nema Nemus because that's something else too. But that's what we're discussing, talking about the shadow self being of the sexual self or the sexual nature of somebody, you know, and it doesn't matter if you're straight, if you're gay, if you're bi, if you're lesbian, if you're whatever, it all acts the exact same. It comes from the core of self, so you might be more of a masculine and be a gay man, or you can be a feminine and be a gay man, or you can be masculine and a lesbian, or feminine and a lesbian. It really doesn't matter what the stereotyping is, because that's not what it is. What it is what you feel inside you. What is that drive? What is that urge? What is that hunger? We use this a lot, not just in shadow workings, but in another aspect of left hand path practice is that we use the shadow as the sexual self, that sexual beast, that sexual urge. We use it to harness that sexual energy to enact our will upon our own universe, our own world. You know, do you use that in your magics as well, or do you like just kind of keep that off to itself?
No, absolutely. It's funny that you said that because one time, I actually, I definitely use sex magic, but I had done sex magic, and it's funny because you go look at the candle wax the next day, and it literally was a dick with balls. I swear to God, I swear to God, it was. I was like, oh my God, yeah. So I just thought that was funny. It's something I'll never forget. I was like, oh my God, it's cock and balls right there.
Imagine sending that to the object of your desire. It would
Yeah.
be a very powerful talisman.
I just thought, wow, Ikela.
You know,
Oh shoot.
not a lot of people have not a lot of people have the demeanor to be able to handle a conversation like this, because when you're talking about
Mhm.
yourself, a lot of the times it depends on what level you're at in working through it inside yourself.
Right.
A lot of people knew upon this path, they feel out of control. They are out of control. They're like raging flames, and that's it.
Right.
In modern day, they would just refer to them as hormonal or something. They would have some slight thing to say. But the truth of the matter is that if you find an archetype to work with while you're working with that shadow set, with the aspect of your shadow that has to deal with sexual urges and sexual drives and so forth and so on, then you find a teacher and a guide that can actually help you along the path of understanding your shadow self and what makes you the way you are. Because a lot of it has to do with the way we're raised up. You know, like we're raised up in this day and age. I think we talked about it the other night in a video talking about me and Thorne did for Dark Sorcery, where we were talking about, we were talking about twin flames and love and so forth and so on. Well, it's normal in this day and age. And when I say normal, I mean it's the normal. It's the norm. It's what you see is, till death do you part. You don't see people in open marriages, open relationships. When you do find them, what you find are very grounded people.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to
They,
be.
because they know who and what they are and what they want. But they also can be in a relationship like that because they fulfill what the other one needs and the other one fulfills what they need. And this is without being anything else, because they've allowed themselves to truly love. Now, this does not mean you have to go that way to learn how to truly love. You know,
Right.
everybody, it's different for everyone. It's never the same, you know. Uh, but with that in mind, when we're discussing the shadow and we're discussing, the sexual self and things of this nature, we've got to kind of understand that it's what we saw when we were coming up. Did mom and daddy stay married? Were they, and if they did stay married, were they actually loving to one another, or were they mean and assholes to one another? Because see, that affects our our internal programming. And when we come up, we're like, nah, nope, marriage ain't for me. No, no, no.
Right. Yeah.
And see, and so all these circumstances that have built up to where we are right now, they have
Hmm.
all colored the pictures in our head of what certain relationships are and what they're about and what they're like and how they're supposed to be, despite
Right.
the norm. I want to hear
Yeah.
your take.
Nothing's the norm anymore, though. I mean, everything's changing, and I think a lot of times, even too, like we grow up like thinking you get married, you have kids, you have that double income, the white picket fence, and that is a just complete lie. And now, there's people like in like poly relationships and different relationships, and I think it's great. And I recently watched a program on like dual relationships like that, and they were just talking about how they're like really comfortable with themselves, and just kind of how the whole aspect of it was. And I just thought it was interesting. I mean, I've never been in a relationship like that, but it's just interesting to me in general. To have that knowing of yourself that you could actually love somebody and still have multiple partners or whatever. But they actually like it's not like a sex thing. They actually have like real relationships with. Well, maybe some do, but in this documentary, it was like a real love triangle thingy that they had going. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting,
Yeah.
and
No.
maybe that's what I thought was maybe it was more instinctual like that, like because we were trained that you have one partner and one partner only, and so that's why it caught my eye because it had me thinking.
Oh yeah. That's
So
why I brought that up is because you have all these different things. What's right for one person won't work for another, and so forth and so on. You know, uh, and these things even if at one stage in your life you can't see that, in another stage in your life you may not, or like maybe you stay just the way you are about it the rest of your life. There's nothing wrong with that. Once again, nobody holds the keys to the kingdom in the hat. They don't have the ultimate truth, and they're the only truth. Uh, but it's interesting though that it also equates to what comes out of us is due to that, and that they call nurture. Nature versus nurture. Nature is when something naturally occurs all its own, and nurture is the effects of how we were raised, of what we witnessed, of what we lived through, of what we came through personally, individually, so forth and so on. And and that in turn, the shadow the whole time has been taking those experiences and sitting there going, okay, I got to protect this one. Oh, I know how to do that.
yes,
Because the shadow, the shadow, the shadow is probably one of the deepest guardian within us is our shadow, because
yes, yeah.
it'll refuse to say that it's fucking wrong when it's fucking wrong, because it's so used to being told it's fucking wrong that it sits there going, oh, you are, you know, and it does this, and so you have to have a sound mind to be able to understand whether or not the feelings coming from yourself are truly your feelings. Or are you trying to make sure he or she doesn't go anywhere? Oh, I'm going to, yeah, you can sleep with whoever you want to. I'm cool with that as long as you come back to me. What the fuck? What the fuck? It's fine if that's what you fucking want. It's another thing altogether if it's because your self esteem is so fucking low
Yeah,
where you're stuck. And
that's not a good thing.
the reason why you and I are having this conversation is because of pointing these details out. This is where the sexual self or the sexual aspect of the shadow comes in.
Right.
Because
Like I think I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I think it has to do with, are we working with the shadow in a healthy way, or is it becoming toxic and causing us issues in relationships, sexuality, our jobs and stuff like that. And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I don't think people talk about this enough. And I think it can be helpful for people to understand that there's different ways of approaching it. And it's very important that we try to harness a positive way to work with it and not let it overtake us, because it will take us out.
Hell yeah.
It's taken me out before, so I know, years before. I'm sure you had your days, Oh, oh God.
Oh, oh, oh,
Oh,
oh.
oh
If there
man.
is a man on the face of the planet Earth that has been done a certain way, I've had it done. For me to be as balanced as I am, I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of it, I think that these things had to happen to me. But I also, at the same time, I chose when I was younger and all this bad shit was happening to me, that I would not become what these events were going to make of me. It is one thing for my shadow self to take it in, but I'm not.
Hmm.
And so, like with all things in life, you have a choice. How are you going to respond? How are you going to react? What are you going to be? Are you going to be this monster, this beast, this I don't care about anybody but my fucking self? Or are
Hmm.
you going to be somebody who's like, I'm going to take this pain, I'm going to wear my scars, not necessarily as badges of honor and glory and valor and shit, because once again that's a downfall. But I'm gonna wear these motherfuckers so and the rest of these motherfuckers up in here that don't know shit about shit, when they run across me, they're gonna realize one thing: holy fuck, this guy's been through the wars, you know.
Hmm.
And it wasn't for me. It wasn't necessarily about showing that to others. With me, it was more about every time it hurt, I remembered, don't do this to somebody else, you know,
Yeah.
because because when we become poisoned, when we become hurt, we turn around and the very first thing we do, we can call it that in between booty, we can call it whatever the hell we want, fall back, crush, whatever. What we end up doing is we end up hurting that person because we haven't taken time to work through that shit to heal from it. You know,
Right.
it's easier just to jump into bed with the next person than it is to work through your shit. It just is,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And I was one of those kind. Even before I met my wife, I was one of those kind who's like, if it hurt, I would just fuck away the pain. In the words of Corn. I mean, just why do I have this torment? All I want to do is fuck it away. And I mean, and I lived with that shit. And I mean, it was like a mantra. Rolled with it. And
Hmm.
still, I started to realize, that that's fine and dandy,
Hmm.
but it is something that I think marriage taught me more about how to overcome shit than when I was single and having to learn it. Uh, because it wasn't until I got married that I actually learned what love really was. How to actually love somebody, love them, and not try to change them. Because my thought was this right here: I don't want them changing. I fell in love with them because because of the way she was. You know, okay, so now we're married and I'm supposed to change her? What? Then
Hmm.
in 10 years, I'm gonna be bored as fuck with that. Why would I do that? Because what kept it exciting was her being the way she was, you know. And that's not for not everybody can do that, but just take into account, viewers out there, that if you're doing this to somebody, it's just a matter of time, and you're not gonna be looking at them with the same lovelorn eyes. You're just not. You're not going to see them the same way. You got to learn to accept people for the way they are, just as they have to accept you for the way you are. There's
Yes.
compromise in that. On the left hand path, what do we do, sister? Mix that shit.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that, no offense to anybody, but that's that young, that oh, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Freud.
Um, when you get in a relationship and you try to change them, I think we've all been through that, or at least I did when I was younger, because I didn't know what love was, where you try to change them and mold them into something. And it's taken me a long time to realize what love is. And I've been, single for 4 years, but I'm grateful for that time, because I've got to work on myself. I got to learn to love myself, because I was just a mess, So I mean, um, yeah, I think if you're gonna sit there and just try to change someone and they don't, yeah, it's just not gonna work. And then people lose themselves in relationships like that, and I see that time and time again. I girlfriends saying, I don't even know who I am anymore, and that that's miserable. You know, I think we've all been there, and it's just not a good place to be.
Yeah,
You know.
you know, you said something a while ago, and I wanted to touch back in on it. You were talking about the toxicity
Hmm.
of,
Uh,
of working through the shadow self and what can happen.
right.
You know, and that's basically what we're sitting here and we're discussing is
Hmm.
this is the toxic end of of the sexual self of the you know that nature within us. Uh, you know that's the downside of it. It's just like you know left hand path practices and stuff like that. You know, and they talk about left hand, right hand, and all this, and I'm like, there's no such thing. You have two hands. You both of them.
Yeah.
Although I am with you on this one, I like referring to it as the left hand path for one reason because it is the hand that stands against the order of things and states that it is your order. And it's the only reason I still use it. Uh, but at some point where that becomes a block or something that doesn't allow me to grow or to expand or to evolve, then it's become toxic. You know,
Right.
uh, help us out just a little bit with this, with the understanding the toxic nature of working through the shadow, because I know you have personal experiences of understanding, you know, how it can become toxic.
Um, and this is one of the things I wanted to touch on was that we make an enemy of the shadow a lot of times, and that's usually what everybody does because they try to run from it, they try to deny it. But I think an important thing is becoming loving towards the shadow, letting the shadow know that you're there, that you acknowledge the shadow, that you love it, and some positive. You know, we're talking about toxic, but I can only give you some positive ways on how you can work with it. Some of it is writing, and just full fledged saying everything that you want to say that you don't normally say. I mean, stuff that you wouldn't want to have like someone. You don't want to write it in a journal and keep it. In other words, when you're done, just write it out. I mean, say the most horrific, evil shit that you possibly can that's on your mind that you wouldn't tell anybody. Then when you're done, just burn it, rip it up. Get it out. I mean, the shadow, honestly, just in my view, wants to be acknowledged. And the more you don't give it attention, you try to make enemies with it, it doesn't work. And I know this from my personal experience. I've dealt with drugs. I've, been to prison. I've lived a very crazy life since the age of 11. I've had traumatic events. And I literally spent my entire life feeding my shadow. And I didn't know how to feed that other side of me because I was so fucking traumatized. And so, uh, now that I'm clean, I've been clean for some time now, and I've been working on myself. It's very important for me to work on that side of myself, because if the more you deny that, I noticed, a long time ago when I would struggle with that would creep back in and would take over me. And so, that's something I'm constantly working on. And, to deny that self is you really can't. They say that, to really begin to work on that shadow and make it a whole, like you said, it's one whole piece. It's not two separate. That's the true path to enlightenment. And so that's something that really catches my eye, because we spend so much time over here, but we got this over here that really, really needs some care. And we got baggage and stuff from childhood. And it sounds like you've been through the ringer like I have, and so you know what I'm talking about, you know?
Yeah, I've definitely gone the. We'll get into the second part now with that on the shadow itself, not necessarily the sexual aspect. But now let's talk about the powerhouse behind it all, and that is the side where addictions come in. This is the side where habits come in. This is the side where this, that, and the other comes in. This is where the identity becomes confused with ourselves. Where we confuse the shadow self with our consciousness. Two,
Yes.
two different things, but let's get in that one. And we're based off
Okay.
what you said. You know, yeah, I've dealt with addiction. I did a video about it. I don't know of anybody who walks the magical path that is not at some. I I've known a lot of people turn to magic, and all of a sudden, within 5 to 8 years, man, they are full blown addicts. And I'm sitting there going, "What the fuck happened?"
Really?
Yeah, and I mean, and
That's
it's
weird, because I'm the opposite. I used to do drugs all my life, and then
yeah,
magic really.
but it's
That's
amazing
crazy.
how many people use it as an excuse. You know,
Oh, like more of
and
the left-hand path and stuff
and
like
this is
that.
and see, and then they fall into that pitfall, into that trap.
Yeah, like yeah, to feed thyself, do what yeah. Okay, well that makes sense. And almost everybody I know in magic has done drugs at some point in time or have struggled with it.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we're all in some way cut from the same cloth.
Well, here's my view on it. This is what I see happens. We have our shadow, and our shadow I've referred to as a shit monster because it collects all the garbages we're coming up, and sometimes we're gonna take a water hose to clean it off, get it all shiny pretty. You know,
Yeah.
so it can just be the shadow, not be the shit monster, but be the shadow. Uh, but anyway, uh, the thing is that all these experiences and things, as we come into the occult, as we come into magic, they start to come to the surface. And sometimes, just sometimes, we're gung ho for the heavens or the hells or wherever we're aiming or directing ourselves. You know, some to being a whole and complete person or having a whole personality, I should say. Uh, we're working towards these things. Well, what happens is all the shit that came up through, we're washing off the shadow, we're cleaning, we're purifying, we're cleansing our shadow, we're making our shadow a perfected being. What happens is that these things that are coming across as addictions and things, imagine why the shadow always showed its fucking ass, why it always seemed so out of control. We as living flesh, we're able to take things, to be able to numb it, to be able to, just not feel or not cope or not deal or any of this other stuff, you know. Whereas dealing with it naturally, you know, you would end up spending 2 or 3 weeks staying the fuck away from social media because you realize how toxic it really fucking is, and how it's affecting you wrong and how some of the stuff you're working through, you need to have time to set aside where you step away from the mainstream so that you can work through your shit.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this is what's happening. This is what's causing this. And and this isn't to say, oh well, if you start practicing magic, everything will get better. No, that's bullshit. Bullshit. You already opened that door. You already started the process. It's going to continue, whether you
Right.
stop or you don't. The idea is to not get the nullified into that where you get just broke down and there's nothing left but a husk. And so the idea is, okay, you want to exercise your shadow self. You want to go smoke a bowl. You want to go pop some ecstasy. You want to go do this. You want to go do that. What the fuck ever. Hit it and quit it. Do like this. Do like the players say. Hit it and quit it. You know, because if you got to have that moment where you feel like you're alive and like you're young or you're whatever. Because I mean, oh my goodness, at the at the types of people I have met throughout my life, and I've watched them, and I'm like, wow, so you're 55 years old, and you've just now found out that you haven't lived your life, you want to live your life, and then they die of a heart attack a year later because they overdid it. I'm like, yeah, baby
Oh
steps,
man, are you serious?
baby
Yeah.
steps, baby steps, my friends, baby steps. Don't try to do that whole line of coke. Yeah. But anyway, but no, seriously, I mean, and what you and I said and we talk about, you want to pick up that beer, you want to get shit faced for a night, fuck it, knock yourself the fuck out. But here's an idea. Celebrate your shadow while you're doing that. But the
Right.
next day, don't pick it back up and make it a fucking habit. Because then
Right.
you're celebrating shit, then you're destroying yourself.
Right. And that's why I was kind of saying, like, well, it's important. Like, I don't like to do that around my kids, and it's every other weekend. And I don't even always do it every other weekend. But when I do, and I do it, and I have fun, and I
Yeah.
just let myself be free, and I don't got kids to worry about. And, I can, just do whatever. And sometimes, I don't have to make plans. They kind of just come together. But being a single mom and being, doing all this stuff, working full time and stuff, it's nice to just kind of get shit faced every once in a while. Well,
Yeah.
you've seen me. The first meeting we had, I was drinking.
I know. I know.
Remember?
But,
Yeah.
but for the viewers out there, I want you to know Dark Sorcery, Ikela, or I or anyone else affiliated with Dark Sorcery condones the use of drugs, alcohol, violence, or sexual hedonism. Good man, girl. So
I'm dying over here.
we did not say that that's okay and go do that. We're
Yeah,
saying
that's not what we're saying. We're just,
conversation.
yeah.
I don't want somebody out there all of a sudden, yeah, well, Dark Sorcery admins agree. We can go do this. No, 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 no.
Let's be like Ikela, go get shit faced. Please don't be like me.
It's, I did, I was on meth for 2.5 years. I quit that shit cold turkey. 3 months, I was an empty shell. I was afraid I would never come back. I couldn't feel that flame inside. I couldn't feel any of that come back. Now, mind you, I didn't do this shit to get high. Oh no, I used it as a doorway for for apotheosis. And then one day, uh, due to legal stuff, like okay, we gotta stop, gotta quit, gotta whatever. Cool, I quit. I had no problem. Willpower was not the problem. But when I quit, all of a sudden I realized whatever the chemicals were that was in it had totally just, totally offset my entire fucking system. A lot of people, they sit there and they say, oh, well, that's why I do weed. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I wish you knew some of the potheads I know that have been smoking this shit for fucking years. Let them go one day without a joint. They lose their shit.
Oh, they do, yeah.
So there's no difference. You can have your opinion. I'm gonna have my opinion. My opinion.
Mm-hmm.
All drugs are drugs. They all have an effect.
Right.
They all. If you happen to be that one person that can quit it and never have no problems, hey, cool, man. You are like one in a billion. Congratulations. But don't try
Mm-hmm.
to put that on for others because it's not the same way. Not all
Mm-hmm.
people can quit the same shit just as fucking easily. I know
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people that to this day they are still struggling with it. I'm sitting there going, how the fuck did I quit so easily? You know? And
You're fortunate to quit that easy cold turkey and not go back, because that's not a typical story at all.
well, see, I was really, really young, and I was working on shamanism, and part of that is the poison path. And now, mind you, this was right around the same time I was working the vampiric current, and so I was learning how to get down into my base nature, and using it as a gateway was easy to transition using different herbs and stuff. I damn near killed myself with fucking mistletoe.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's very possible.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
damn near did that. That was fun. Didn't mean to do it.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
but thankfully, I had some really good teachers that were able to, help me teach me how to detoxify, how to cleanse, stuff like that. And then the rest of it was just constant spirit work of healing the body. The idea, though, is to be able to do something without it. Uh, the reason why we're bringing all this into the light, because it's subjects people just will not touch, do not want to touch it. Oh, I'm gonna get banned and I'm gonna get this and I'm gonna get that. Let me tell you something. There is a lot worse out there that you can put into your body, and if you have no control over it, and once it goes in your body, it's in your body's control. It's not in your control. It's not in your mental control. It's not in your willpower. Then it's all up to whether your body can handle it and whether your body can fight it. This is the only reason why I say that this shit should not be taken lightly, and it should very well be done under, actual supervision by, people who are trained upon the path, who know what the fuck they're doing with it. For the rest of us out there who just like to have a good time, hoorah! I'll say hell, but come back to reality with us and remember that this is the first gift, and this is what you have to walk around in. You can't be doing your magical workings, your vegetable because of hooking gas or doing whatever crazy shit you managed to do. So always take into account your body is not your mind. It is a complete different thing. The mind abides in it. It does not abide in the mind. But with that being said, sister, getting back to the full weight of shadow of the shadow itself, we've sat here and we've discussed the sexual aspect of it, and then we've talked a little bit about addictions and where these things come from. One thing I like to think of is the night sky. If you thought of it without being able to see the stars or anything like that, how it would look like a giant blank black sheet. I like to think of the shadow as being that, without all the starlights and things. But what we are doing is when we can project this conscious idea or thought of what our shadow is and the aspect of what makes it beautiful. What are some of the more positive things that we can actually obtain besides, oh, we've got to fight a beast that's out of control, or we have to fight addictions. What's a positive aspect of the shadow besides it being our protector? What's a good aspect of it?
That's a great question because, I mean, the biggest aspect of the shadow is to protect us. Um, hmm. I'm gonna have to think on that. I mean, it goes down to the instinctual stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
No, you just said it, instinctual, because
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
what the
there's not a lot to it. I mean, it's a protector and it's instinctual, and we've kind of veered from being instinctual to being programmed by society. So I think there's got to be an equal balance to the whole piece of it, and working on that is something I think a lot of people with magic miss out on. It's a huge part, and it should be worked on.
I like
And
the
it's something that I'm constantly working on. I don't have it mastered. It's always a work in progress, and I'm always learning something new. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I wanted to see what your thoughts on it were. And it kind of brought out some other things during the conversation, which was fantastic. You know,
well, I'm glad we could do this, because but I like what you said, instinctual. See, okay, think of your gut instinct. Okay, like intuition.
hmm
Who do you think the master of intuition is, but the one who has the instinct to notice danger, notice when something is a viable target? Oh, look, that's what I want.
right.
Is it your
That gut
shadow
instinct, yeah.
necessarily that wants it? Because see, the shadow and the light self, they're one and the exact fucking same. The shadow just says, "Ooh, look, let's go get that." We consciously may not be aware that that instinct or that drive is actually our intuition saying that that's what we need. You know,
Right. Or that's what we don't need. Or we're
exactly.
picking up we're picking up on some cues that this situation isn't safe, or this person is lying. Um, and so that's the kind of good thing that you brought that up, because there's that back and forth between both sides of it, because when you get those instinctual thoughts, first off, you're automatically going to be, you might come off with thinking the most negative thing about it, and there has to be that balance to just sit and just kind of feel, because the mind takes off, and before you know it, you're going back and forth, and it's war between the two. And it's funny because I used to tell my therapist, it's this projector lady, like this projector lady's back here showing me all these images, and she needs to calm down.
Yeah.
you know
Mhm. It reminds me when I was going to church when I was little and I was told the devil is evil and he's blah 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 and you smacked him. All I thought was, but what if him and God got on the same page one day, actually made fucking amends, quit trying to kill or save everybody, and just like, hey, let's go back to being the one same being we've always been. And that started off when I was like 9, and I got kicked out of a few Sunday schools because of that concept. Because they're like, no, 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 the devil's bad. I'm like, and Jonah got ate by a whale, and the motherfucker got spit back out. There's no way. There's no way.
yeah,
So if that's not possible, then what you're sitting here trying to push down my throat is impossible.
right.
And that's when it dawned on me, as I got older, is that it's up to us individually to rectify these divisions, these mistakes, these errors. This is where we bring the shadow out. We bring it into the light. Now, darkness doesn't care much for light. Light doesn't care much for darkness. I mean, look at the way they interact.
hmm
However, you've got to heal your demons. And how do you heal your demons? You got to bring that shit out in the light. You got to say, hey, here's my handful of shit I've got to deal with and I've got to continue.
right. Instead of running from it, because that doesn't change anything, it just becomes miserable. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? It's freeing the more that you start to work on it.
Oh, yeah.
That you just deal with it. And stuff. Every day, new stuff comes up, new challenges. and stuff like that, and it's just you become stronger.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good part of working on yourself.
Oh yeah. But sister, we're getting here at the end of our thing here. Thank you so much for taking time to do this video with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
love
absolutely.
it.
It was a pleasure. I'm glad you asked me to do an interview with you, and I'm glad that we made this topic because it's like it's something that nobody talks about, and we hit home on some stuff that nobody likes to talk about either. That's very controversial. Maybe we'll get some reviews.
Well, there's just one thing about it. We're not condoning nor condemning. We're just pointing out that this is what it is. What they do with it is what they do with it. And with that in
Right.
mind, I got an awesome idea for the name of this video. Happy Hour.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, to all of our viewers out there, from Sorcerer Monsul to Ikela Morningstar, we wish to thank our Dark Sorcery family. We wish each and every single one of you peace, blessings, power. Till next time, sister, take it.
All right. Thanks for having me. You guys have a great evening. Dark blessings.